Good morning from California. I know people are logging in from all around the world, so I should say good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, NomadManians. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Lucy Shu, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. Our webinar topic today is how to write and how to publish a travel book. During the month of September, we here at NomadMania launched a poll asking members of the travel community about their favorite books, about their favorite reading preferences. And I do have the results of that poll with me today, and I'll be happy to share that. That's going to be during the second segment of our webinar. And I know many of you are very excited to hear more about Harry's new book, Welcome to the Hotel NomadMania. That's going to be at the very end of our webinar. For the first segment of our webinar, we're going to be introducing 4 panelists who are travel authors. Now, all 4 of our panelists are impressive travelers, and they have published at least 1 book. They're going to be sharing some practical tips on how to write, how to publish, and how to market a travel book. And it is my pleasure to introduce them. The first panelist I'm going to introduce is Flavio Ferrari Zumbini. Hello there.
Hi, everyone.
Now, Flavio is from Rome, and he's written more than 10 books. Is that correct?
That's correct. And my name was correct as well. We trained so well. You pronounce it perfectly.
Thank you. Could you share briefly about one of your books?
Yeah, so I began writing books during the pandemic. As you can guess, everyone was bored at home. So I said, what can I do right now? So I began writing books about single countries, the more far-fetched ones. But then after I ended my quest around the 193 countries that we all know very well, as you can guess, that this deserves a book. So I wrote it in almost a year. It's called Every Country. And as you can guess, is mentioning every single country in the world, how I visited, how it went, which one is my favorite, and so on.
Thank you. The next panelist is Konstantin Simonenko. He's from Ukraine, and he is he is the only UN Master from Ukraine so far. And the title of his book is 2 Million Kilometers to the Dream. Hi, Konstantin, welcome.
Hello, everyone. The same story. In 2020, the world faced the coronavirus, and we all found ourselves locked in our apartments. Before epidemic, I was used to fly at least 120, 150 flights a year, and I felt like a bird in a cage. I decided to keep myself busy with something at that time. And the best thing I found was to write a book about my travels. And I call my book 2 Million Kilometers to the Dream because it was exactly 2 million kilometers that I flew, sailed, walked to visit all countries of the world. And it was a dream to see all countries of the world, despite the fact that I was born in Soviet Union, a country that was completely closed from the whole world. The story is like that.
Wonderful. So I hear a commonality between the two of you. You took advantage of the pandemic to become writers or to write more. That's very inspiring. Our third panelist is Mike Richards.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. He is also known as the Travelling Ape, and he has quite an extensive blog following, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I've been doing the blog for around 3 or 4 years. And actually, again, like the other two here, I'd always had the idea that I would one day write a book. The time came up to do it during the pandemic when actually travel was impossible. We had time to sort of sit back and reflect on where I'd been and what I'd done. And that's where the book that was released a couple of days, The Travelling Ape, What Traveling Nearly Everywhere Taught Me About Humanity, Geopolitics and Happiness came from, which is sort of summarizes, I guess, what I've learned and how travel has changed me as a person.
Wonderful. Now, Mike, I did read something about you that is something in common with me. is that you are a meditation teacher, and I'm a yoga teacher. And like you, I also enjoy doing silent meditations all over the world. So maybe I'll see you someday.
Yeah, and we won't be able to speak, but we can one of
Yeah.
the
Well, I know that meditation helps you find inspiration. And that may be one of the reasons or one of the ways that you get inspiration for writing. And that would be my first question to the three of you. What are some ways that you get inspired to write? Can you please tell our audience? Because today we really want to talk about how to get ideas, how to get unstuck when we get a writer's block. We really want to get into the how-tos of writing. So, how do you get inspired to write?
If I can jump in, I might say we all began during the pandemic, but please be aware, writing it's fun, books are fun. Usually you listen to the good advice of parents, just get a book so you have a nice night of sleep. No, reading is fun. Writing is fun as well. So obviously the pandemic get you the chance to have time to explore, but please be aware it's not boring at all. It's fun, it's pure fun.
Thank you, Flavia. I wish I could just invite you to my classroom. I teach 8-year-olds right now, and I don't know why I can't get them to write, but if you can convince them that writing is fun, that would be wonderful.
It is fun. I'm sure it is. You with yourself. I mean, if you are a yoga teacher or meditation, I'm not an expert in this, but it's a journey within yourself, you alone. You be aware. So maybe I can give the first advice that comes to my mind. Be aware about the instruments you have. Don't compete with YouTube we are using now. Don't describe too much things that might be seen. Don't compete with something that gives information in real time like internet. It's a book. So it's really, you can make a journey with the reader. Go with your thoughts. That's the best, still the best instruments. You have time. You don't have to rush like on YouTube. You need to make something fun in the first 3 seconds, otherwise people go somewhere else. With the book, people are committed. They've spent some money, they are with you, so you have all the time to develop your story. It's like meditation. You don't have to rush. The class doesn't have to be fun or give an immediate result in 10 seconds. You have 1 hour, you have maybe 1 year. So take your time, use wisely the instruments you have. Don't compete with a guidebook, with information about Monday, the museum is closed.
Okay.
Those things you see, and go with the flows.
Yeah. So Flavia, I'm hearing something in common that you're saying with Mike is like it's really a personal journey and to like seek within yourself and not compete with outside influences. What do you have anything to say about that, Mike?
Yeah, I think writing is about, at least for me, it's about finding your voice. And this, like any skill, involves practicing it. So in my career, I write for The Economist magazine. And for 10 years, I've been writing in a more formal way. And I had to try and sort of build that voice for myself. And this involved doing blog posts, practicing writing, and just really getting to the stage where you feel comfortable expressing yourself through the written word. And I think if you're constantly practicing it and you become confident in the way that you can write, when it comes to writing a book itself, it kind of for me at least, it felt like it kind of wrote itself. I've been doing all of this work, I've been doing all of this this writing and seeing the world, and when the book came, it sort of came out of me. But prior to then, I would just say, if you don't have experience with writing, just get practicing any way that you can, whether it's blog posts, emails to friends, anything that just gets that kind of part of your brain working. And the more and more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And then sort of bring it a bit back to the sort of the meditation element. I think actually the act of writing, and when you get into a flow state, can be incredibly enjoyable. As Flavio said, it can be really, you're present, you're in the moment, and hours can pass actually, and you're like, I don't know what happened there, but I've got 2,000 words here, and it can be good and maybe not so good, but this is it. It's sort of get it down on the page and get practicing, and I think that's where the love affair starts.
Thank you. Very helpful, very practical. So even if you don't think that you're a good writer, start somewhere. So it could be journaling, writing something short. Okay.
100%. If you're going to write a book, it's a lot of words, it's a lot of pages, and so starting with shorter form writing is maybe a way to familiarize yourself with it, sort of become more comfortable with it, and then writing a book feels a little bit less scary. Whereas if you've not written at all, the idea of writing, 100,000 words or something might seem like completely mad. So yeah, the more you practice, the less daunting I think it will feel.
Yeah, that's great practical advice, just to write for fun. And like Flavio said, make it fun. And then like you're saying, Mike, just to write and practice. And the more you write, the more natural it becomes. And then what about you, Konstantin? How do you get inspired to write?
I was inspired with the reaction of my followers in social media, because I start to write a short posts about the countries, in Instagram and Facebook about, my experience, some funny things about travel life. And I understand that this is interesting for the people. And I got the main idea of how to write from the reaction of the audience, from the comments, from their questions. So the beginning of my book was in social media posts and and story like that. So it inspired me.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying that you started writing a lot just through your posts on
Yes.
Facebook and Instagram. And then as you interact with your readers, you're
Yes.
better as a writer as well.
So the beginning of the book, was my post in Instagram and Facebook, and then I put more and more and more on this skeleton.
Yeah. So I'm hearing, so writing doesn't have to be formal all the time. Because when we think
It's a
of
pure fun. I agree with everybody that it's just pure fun.
yes.
You like immerse inside. You just remember all things which happen with you in travels, and it's fun, really fun.
I think beginning with social media, I haven't done it, but it's feedback in real time. You immediately adjust for your audience. I think one problem we may have as as hardcore traveler, it's losing connection with an average traveler. Sometimes you get too focused on things that are passionate and interesting only for you because you've been traveling so much. But usually when we meet and gather, you begin talking about Afghanistan and Yemen. But the truth is right now people are looking for a holiday in Spain, not in Afghanistan. So it depends also what do you want to achieve. Of course, you can find your own niche and talk about Afghanistan, but then you need to be extremely proficient and knowledgeable about a single country. And usually, I might say, the people that belong here, they're more horizontally, like they've been to many, many places, but they're not expert of a single country. You can find someone who knows the language, is living in Afghanistan since 10 years, knows the religion and customs and whatever. So try to use the instruments properly, try to assess your own expertise, your own capacity. And social media this way, they help you because you see if you have an audience by talking about certain things on Afghanistan, or it's better to talk about Spain or whatever. Usually it's better to make many comparisons because people like us, they're not in depth in single country again. They have a very broad vision. So usually in a book, you can convey this message like I've seen a lot. I give you my insight, or I can make some comparison. I'm not going to talk about Morocco for 20, 50 pages. You can find much better than me, someone who knows so much more than me about a single country.
So what I'm hearing is that the feedback is very important. Like, so practice writing and just get started. So in a very short phrase, for each three of you, a very short phrase, someone who just decided, I'm going to write a book. What is the first step you think they should take? So we're going to keep this answer quick because I want to move on to the next step. So someone decides they want to write a book. What should they do first? Mike.
Start getting it down on the page, even if it's not perfectly formed.
Okay. So just start writing. Okay. Flavio, the first thing they should do.
Read books written by others first, not to advertisement. Begin with the book of Harry, for example. Take an example, see how others, they spend so much time on the papers and they came up with something.
Okay.
So first read the others. As you just look at your competitors next door and find out. And then you begin by yourself.
Very good. And Konstantin, the first thing someone should do.
Well, try not to pay too many attention to unnecessary details like prices, like visa conditions. because these things change very quickly, especially in Africa or Oceania. Just pay more attention to your emotions and try to, express your emotion about the country, continent, traditions, people, like that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now I'm going to talk about the second process of writing. So I also teach writing, and this will probably be useful for me as a teacher on helping my students. I know that the process of revision is very important. Okay. So I'd like to know, what steps do you take when it's ready for a revision? Do you like to get like friends and family to read it? Do you have a trusted confidant, or do you just send it to an editor? What do you do when you think it's time to revise? So let's see who wants to answer that first. Yes, Mike.
I'll jump in here. I would say that hearing back from friends and family is useful, but they are not going to be completely honest. So getting someone sort of external to you, and even if you've gone something like Readsy and you pay a little bit of money for an editor to have a read, I think the feedback they give you will be very honest and very useful. And I think the phrase that's been really useful for me is to be able to kill your darlings. It's a bit of a brutal phrase, but it's to say that when you've written something, you can feel very attached to it. And if someone says, actually, this chapter wasn't very good, maybe the book, it shouldn't go in the book, you might have to be prepared to actually just let it go. And if you hear lots of people coming back with the same feedback, you should maybe take it on board, even if it's stuff that you don't really want to hear. I know that when I was writing my book, there were chapters that I loved that in the end had to not put them in the book, just I got the feedback that it wasn't quite working. So it's just the idea that it's an iterative process. The first draft you do, you'll think is like, oh, that's pretty much how the book is maybe going to look at the end. You'll get lots of feedback. I think lots will change. And the final book might look very different maybe to the first one that you've written. But with that feedback, at least in my case, I think taking on board what the reader might like and might not like means that the final product, I think, will connect, hopefully, with the most amount of people.
I see. That makes sense. I mean, we trust our friends and families, but we want to trust an outsider because they're not going to be as, worried about our feelings.
Yeah, like my mum is not going to be like, completely honest with me. She's never going to say this, this sucks.
Loves everything you do. Your mother. What are your thoughts on that, Flavio?
I had done it professionally, so I wanted to get a high standard, but I've used family and friends and fellow travelers just in one way, like their only task was tell me if it is not clear. Because if you, a person with which I've spoken long time about what I've done, or another fellow traveler like me who has been to the play, he doesn't get it, then the average reader clearly cannot get it. It means it's not written properly, it's not clear. So the only task was underline parts in which you are not 100% sure about what I'm saying, because if such a high standard, you have so much more knowledge than the average reader. If you don't get it, that's clearly my fault. That's it.
Okay, that's an interesting take. So you want to get feedback from someone who's also somewhat knowledgeable in the topic that you're writing about. That's very helpful. And what about you, Konstantin?
Well, I self-published my book, so I found a text proofreader who checked the syntaxis errors, and I found a literary agent who checked the facts and slightly correct the text. And then I gave it to 20 people. I call them beta testers, but not from the travelers community. I gave it to the ordinary people, to a friend of my friends, and so from different age categories, like mothers of my friends and sons of my friends, so from the young age to the pensioners, and get a feedback from them. And after that, I slightly correct the text to make it more understandable for each category of future readers. And yeah, I corrected due to the response of these people.
Very interesting. It sounds like 3 slightly different approaches, but very helpful. So it sounds like, Konstantin, you want to hear feedback from a wide range of different readers. Wonderful. And actually, Konstantin, you just touched upon the thing I'm very interested in. And I think a lot of viewers may be interested in the concept of self-publishing because that's become very popular. What are your thoughts, Konstantin, on publishing through a publisher versus self-publishing?
Well, um, all publishing houses are told. Well, first of all, my book is, it's very big and colorful. It contains 300 photos and 460 pages. So it's a thick one and with lots of pictures. And then I came to the publishing house. They told me that they did not need so many photos because photos required expensive paper. In fact, they say they don't want any photos at all. So they want to print the text on a cheap paper. Moreover, they didn't need so many pages either because it's also expensive. So they suggest me to throw half of my book and leave maximum of 200 pages. To be honest, this is not what I wanted when I started my book. I wanted to make it really cool and beautiful. On the other hand, publishers wanted to make it as cheap as possible. So that's why I decided to publish it myself, to keep the quality. And it was easier than I thought, much easier than get a visa to Turkmenistan. So I found, as I told already, proofreaders and the correctors and the editors, all of them were freelancers, and it was 3 times at least cheaper than from publishing house. Then I found a printing house that was even easier. It's a lot of in Ukraine, printing house, and the entire publishing process took approximately six months. It's easy. Nowadays, it's really easy. For me, I decided to do it self-publishing because I wanted to keep the quality of the book.
Hmm. Very nice. So it sounds like from your experience doing it by yourself, you're able to have a little bit more control and you can control for the quality of your book.
Yeah, because, usually publishers, they wanted to make it as cheap as possible. I wanted to make it as good as possible, It's...
Of course, it's like your baby.
Yes, exactly. The first.
Mike, do you have any input about that?
Yes, I've sort of had experience with both. So the Travelling Ape book I self-published, and for similar reasons just mentioned. I think being able to say exactly what you want to say, you really can do it more easily self-publishing. You have more freedom over it. So I think it can be more closely aligned with the book that you actually want to write and want to release. There's other practical things like actually when it's up on Amazon, the royalties you get, the proportion is quite a bit higher than if you go with a publisher. I think with a normal publisher, it's about 10%. I'm currently working with another publisher with a book about corporate mindfulness, and it's a good experience. But actually, when you work with another publisher, there's lots of benefits. You get their experience, you get their publicity, but they also have a much bigger say over, what to include, what to not include. And you might find yourself with a book that, is with a sort of publisher, but it might be quite different to the one that you wanted to write. So, there's benefits and downsides to both. But the self-publishing experience with my travel book, what I liked was, again, the fact that, I could say exactly what I wanted to say, and you don't need to compromise on things that you don't want to. And it's a very simple process now as well. So it's quite straightforward, I think.
Thank you. That's what I was feeling. Like there was pros and cons to both options, and this is very helpful to everyone who's watching, who's interested. And what about you, Flavio?
Yeah, I think there is even a third option that is usually you pay a tiny publisher to get it printed, and they usually force you to buy like the first 1,000 copies. So in a way, it seems like, okay, it's a publisher, but the truth is not. He's not investing on you. He's asking you the money for the whole process. But then you have control on what is going on. You can decide everything because they made a profit immediately on you. So I might say it depends on what's your goal in life. If the bad news is not going to make a lot of money by printing a book, by publishing, editing, writing whatever the book. Harry Potter is once every 10 years. It's very unlikely you make a lot of money. So a book is usually an instrument to give you satisfaction, personal one, to make an established business having something to present. It gives you, makes you more important in the eyes of the other people in the industry or in the business. So if it is personal satisfaction, you want to control everything, self-publish or go to a small publisher that actually is exploiting your desire and offering you all those services for a high price, or you can just try to publish with a traditional publisher, but don't expect much, unfortunately. It's a world in which only in Italy 65,000 books are published every single year in Italian. Imagine a tiny language. It's less than 1% of the world population. So me personally, for example, I've been published in the past in a very different world about poker with the biggest publisher in Italy. This book was a success not because of me, but because it was very popular. When I finished, I wrote them an email by saying, do you want me to write a book about traveling? And they just said no. So despite having the personal contact with the person in charge of printing the books, I've made them earn money in the past and whatever, they said no. So I didn't even try to send my books to anyone. It was, in my opinion, a waste of time, and I've done everything through Amazon. But again, it's up to you. It depends what you want to achieve with the book.
Thank you for that. Thanks for giving the insight on both options and also that third option. So now we're going to move on to the next part, which is talking about marketing your book. So I've heard that you might have to start marketing even before the book is complete. So tell me about your experience with marketing and what tips do you have for marketing your book? Can we start with Mike again?
Yeah, so I think having some kind of following in the first place makes it a lot easier. So I've been doing a blog for about 5 years, have a decent amount of people that sign up to it. So I know that there was already a market of people that might be interested. Again, similarly, I've got sort of a decent Instagram following as well, which I've been building up over the last few years. And so that was good to know that there was already a group of people that, might be interested. So when it came to actually, there's the blog there. When it came to releasing the book, it was quite easy to write blog posts telling people, in a month's time, the book is going to come out. And then on my social media platforms, telling people weeks in advance, this is the release date. I'm giving them maybe tasters, releasing the book cover, showing them that, what that's going to look like. I would say something that's been very useful for me has been sending the book to other authors and getting their feedback, getting some quotes, that you can then share with other people to say that actually, lots of other people have read the book and they've enjoyed it and this is what they've said. The idea is that by the time the book is released, hopefully that all of the people that are interested in you hope that all of them know that, this is the day it's coming out, this is the day it's going to be released. And with that build up, hopefully, the sales follow.
Wonderful. So it sounds like you spend quite a lot of energy on social media, kind of drumming up the excitement so that when the book is here, then people are excited to buy it.
Yeah, that's true. And I enjoy elements of social media, but I don't enjoy elements of social media. So I don't like spending too much time on it. But it's a very useful means to an end. And if you know that there's a market of people that follow you, you assume that they're following you because they enjoy what you're putting out there, and that leads you to believe that they're following your stories or they're just following the posts you're doing. Hopefully in a book, which is obviously much more in depth, a lot richer. These are people that might find it interesting as well. And also, if you can reach out to anyone that's doing podcasts, anyone in the travel sphere that's also doing blog posts, to really kind of just get the word out that the book is being released.
All right. Any response to what Mike said? Any commonalities?
Well, if you self-publish, marketing is on you, 100%. So nobody's going to help you, and probably it's partially true even with a with a publisher nowadays. I mean, unless you are really an established name, a super famous person, but otherwise it's really on you. There are websites that are specialized on these. On Amazon, you can make deals. You can send it for free to a certain number of people, influencers, whatever. So there are instruments, and beginning in advance, of course, it's important. Then on day one, there are a certain number of people buying at the same time. So you go on a higher number on rankings and stuff. There are a few tricks you can find online to try to see the light. But in general, I would say make it look professional. Like, it's not a joke that you stay in your living room, you have nothing to do, you begin typing, then people will feel like, okay, it's fun just for you. Why should I waste so much time in reading it? So make it look professionally, actually make it really professional, but make it look professional as well, with no mistakes, nice graphics and whatever, and make it look fun. I hate the things that with books you get bored. People have the impression, so many people in the world have the impression, oh my God, I have to read a book, it's so boring. It's not. It's not. It's like I say, the conversation I had, it seems to me like the Italian marketing on tourism, cultural sites all the time. Yes, Italy is wonderful. We have so many beautiful places, but I don't know why then people go to Spain. Spain has twice as many tourists than Italy because they have all the cultural sites as well, plus fun. It's fun to go to Spain as a holiday. You enjoy. People immediately think I have fun nightlife and whatever. In Italy, people think only about beautiful museums, paintings, and statues. But well, it's not truly a holiday. It's like a struggle. With the books, it's the same. Make them. I'm gonna give you something cultural, something that makes you think about, something that gives you a good kick in life, but is also fun.
Great. I think that's your keyword for today. Fun. Fun Flavio. That's your nickname now. Konstantin, any thoughts on marketing?
Yes. Well, my book is on Ukrainian language, so I was focused on the local market. No Amazon for me, just local market. In 2 years, I sold more than 7,000 printed copies, which is a very good result for a rather small market. Not a Harry Potter, but still good. In general, if you have a large audience on social networks, selling book is not a problem. In addition, I ask a big travel bloggers, my friends and influencers, to tell their audience about the book. Honest, if you hear me, thank you very much, friend. So I created a separate landing page about the book. It's a small one-page website where you can read about the book, pay and order the book. It is a very important detail, maybe the most important, because the landing page should be short, bright, beautiful, and as informative as possible, because usually people have 10-15 seconds to decide, will they buy the book or not? Just 2 paragraphs about the book, 2 paragraphs about yourself, maybe some video, because my book have lots of here we are. I also put even a video how I live, through the book, so everyone can see how it's nice and how many photos they have. And you should definitely place a section with reviews on the book. It really helps. Yes, it's reviews. I even put a video how I live the book, and I put a picture from Somalia with a man hanging a shark on the shoulder. So the landing page is really, really important. After I sold the first 1,000 of the books, it's not a secret that large bookstores don't want to cooperate with newbies, with no names, with people who just starting. So after you sold your first 1,000, you can cooperate with large bookstores. I talked to the largest Ukrainian online bookstore, Yakabu. Actually, I choose two largest bookstores. So, and I signed with them an agreement, and it gave me a new boost for selling my book. Usually bookstore charge you like 40% of the selling price of the book, but they gave you an advertising and their enormous customer base. And it's really helping in selling your books. So with help of these bookstores, I sold another several thousand books.
Wow.
And on the first stage, the first stage of the selling is selling through the targeted advertising on a Facebook or Instagram. It's really also works. And the most important thing here is a catchy picture and slogan. I had a slogan like how Ukrainian visited all countries in the world, and the picture of open book with pictures from Somalia and from Africa. It was good. So it's like that. These three stages, like your social network, and with the help of some influencers, internet bookstores, and advertisement through the social media, target advertisement, really can make all the marketing.
Thank you. So I think the key is really getting the word out, making it attractive, making it fun, and just getting it out.
Selling is even more fun than the writing.
Oh, that's a good point. So we're about to wrap up this segment, but since I still have a few minutes, I want to do a fun lightning round. So lightning round means it has to be fast and ideally one word. I'm going to ask a quick question and just go through the three of you and just give me your quick answer. Okay? First question, where is your favorite place to write, Mike?
Early in the morning.
Early in the morning. So okay, we'll change it. When is the favorite? So you said the morning. When is your favorite time to write, Constantine?
Midnight.
Midnight. Okay.
When everybody in the house is sleeping, you're alone. And,
nice and quiet. How about you, Flavio?
I wrote the book, I claim, and I praise myself bare feet. It doesn't matter what time, but you just feel comfortable. You don't have the shoes, and wherever you are, I've written it in Uganda, with a wonderful landscape, no problems,
Great.
bare feet. It was.
So it doesn't matter when, just barefoot. Okay. Because my second lightning round question is, where is your favorite place to write? Mike?
London.
London. Okay.
London.
Constantine?
No matter, actually. I was writing my book in the planes. No, not the planes, because it was in office, in a home. It doesn't matter, actually.
Okay. Anywhere. Okay.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I would say wherever you have peace, it's a work at the end. It's a pleasure. Of course, it's not a hard job. It's not hard labor. You are not toiling under the sun and whatever, cropping the land, but it's a job. You have to take it seriously. So you need peace, you need time. The effort has to be repeated day after day. It's not just 1 hour up and now, or maybe on Saturday I can do it in a couple of hours or whatever.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm tempted to just do one last lightning round, but it has to be one word. Promise? One word. What's your favorite food or beverage while you write, Mike?
It's coffee.
Coffee. Constantine?
Well, obvious coffee.
Coffee. Flavio?
Yeah, on the internet is always like a book and coffee. They get together. Just they belong together.
I think that's the key, everyone. It's coffee. And I'm in trouble because I don't drink coffee. So I'll need to start drinking coffee if I want to write a book, huh? Thank you so much. So that pretty much wraps up the segment on how to write a book with our wonderful panelists. And the next segment, and actually I would like the three of you to listen as I share the results of our poll. So we administered a travel poll about books and reading preferences. And this is also published on our NomadMania website, if for anyone who wants to review it in detail. So we'll go on to the answers, and some of them are interesting and some of them may be surprising to us. So here we are. Our travel poll. The first question is, how many books do you read on average per year? 35% said 0 to 5 books per year. So that sounds a bit low, but a big chunk, 25%, said they read more than 21 books per year. So that's a good number. The second question was, how many travel books do you read? Let me see. Oh, okay. So the distinction for number 2 is how many travel books. So not just books in general, but how many travel books do you read on average per year? So this is overwhelming. 70% said they only read 0 to 5 travel books. So that's a big chunk that are not reading travel books specifically. And 15% said they read 6 to 10. So it sounds like people are reading books, but not necessarily travel books. The third question says, what type of travel book do you like to read? And for this question, the respondent was able to answer they were able to select 2 possible answers. So what type of travel book? So the options were travel books about personal experiences. The other option was guidebooks and geography books. The third option is historical or political books with a strong sense of place. And the last option was fictional books with a strong sense of place. So the most popular one of all, 50% said they love books about travelers and their personal experiences. So that's the most popular one. 45% said they love guidebooks and geography books. 40% said they love historical or political books with a strong sense of place. And only 25% like fictional travel books with a strong sense of place. The fourth question asked respondents to give a list of beloved travel books, and I'm just going to name a few of them, but again, these results will be on our website if you want to get specific titles. And my apologies if I don't say the author's name correctly. I'll do my best. One of them that was mentioned is The Shadow of the Sun by Ryszard Kapuscinski. Another title is The Dream of Africa by Javier Reverte. A third title is The Ribbons Are for Fearlessness by Katrina Davies. Tuva or Bust by R. Layton. Another book was A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermer. Another one called Anything by Bill Bryson. Another book is Baghdad Without a Map by Tony Horwitz. Eastward to Tartary by Robert Kaplan. Dark Star Safari and Deep South by Paul Theroux. And Lands of Lost Borders, A Journey on the Silk Road by Kate Harris. So those are a few titles for you if you're interested. The next question number 5, is where do you read books? 50% said they read at home, and only 23% read on holiday. So I was surprised by that because I thought people like to read when they're on holiday. But now I'm thinking, in our travel community, we're pretty extreme. We're really on the go, trying to get a lot of regions. So maybe they're not making time to relax and read. So 50% prefer to read at home. And the last question is, once you read a travel book, what do you most likely do? 35% will read another book by the same author. 32% would recommend it to their friends. And only 6% will write a post on social media. And that surprised me because 6% seems quite small. And I thought in this day and age of, we like to review everything, that people would write more posts on social media. So 6% only. So those were the first 6 questions. Our panelists, if you're still there, do you have any reactions to that? No? Okay.
Yeah, I'm impressed they don't read while traveling. I mean, that's my, I've done it so many times. We have so much boredom sometimes in traveling. You have so many empty spaces or waiting for the bus, the train, the airplane, and whatever. So a book fits in perfectly.
I would add, I guess, in the NomadMania community as well, a lot of people have the ability, apart from during COVID, a lot of us have the opportunity to travel a lot. And actually, sometimes I found when I'm traveling, because I'm traveling, I like to read something else. So maybe it's a question of actually in this demographic, people are traveling a lot. And so the desire to read travel books maybe decreases. But I imagine maybe during the pandemic, a lot of people were reading travel books, maybe wistfully hoping and imagining that they could be away from home.
Hey, Francis.
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you manage to hear me rattle off the poll results?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was trying to work out my technical difficulties, and number one technical difficulty is that I got the time zone wrong by 1 hour.
You're here nevertheless. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And
hello, everybody.
hi. Do you have any thoughts on, how few people read travel books in our community? Or anything else that I said about 50% read at home, only 23% read on holiday? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously, when you're on holiday, you're busy doing other shit. So that's one reason. And I think, at least for me, anyway, I write travel books, and I wish everybody would read them, but c'est la vie. Some people. For example, I don't know about you other authors out there, but sometimes when you go travel someplace, you don't really want to know anything about the place at all. And you kind of want to go there blind and just discover it. And when you read a book or a guidebook or anything, that kind of ruins it in a way. What do you guys think?
Sorry to say, I try to read as much as possible before going. So I call it doing my homework, arriving that I know as much as possible so I can get there. But might make sense. So you like to be surprised.
Yes. There's a guy, I can't remember, it was at one of the ETF conference or something like that. He went to some place, I think it was Curacao or something like that, where he purposely didn't know a single thing about it. He just wanted to go there. Do you remember this, Lucy?
Vaguely.
Okay. All right.
But
anyway.
I can understand, like, you don't want to know all the ins and outs because you want to discover a bit. But I'm like Flavio, I like to do some research as well. So for me, a balance is good. Thank you so much. And
Sure.
we actually have one last question, and I saved it because it's segueing into a highly anticipated music video. So the last question was, the word NomadMania appears for the very first time in a book. How do people feel about it? So 70% said they are excited or intrigued. And so now this leads me to one of the most anticipated events of today, which is a spectacular music video. And I have a small part in it. It is made up of about 20 of us extreme travelers in the community. And it is a music video that is in anticipation of the book, Hotel NomadMania. And what else is very iconic about this music video is that there's 11 UN Masters starring in this video. So without further ado, I think we should play it. And this is my first time seeing it, so I'll probably be hysterical. So let's watch it.
isolated atoll, NomadMania's new lair. The stench of 5 bodies rising up through the air.
Nobody knows who done it. The killer's on the loose. They lie motionless on the stained floor. Who is next on the news?
A botched investigation, helpless personnel. The body count keeps rising. They go to heaven or they go to hell.
Up ahead in the distance, no new regions in sight. A conference and holiday this ain't, it's just a one-way flight.
Welcome to the Hotel NomadMania.
Such a deadly place, will we solve the case?
Traveling around the Hotel NomadMania.
If you try to hide, you can't hitch a ride. Death by cyanide.
Where is the murder weapon? It's an arrow or dart. The killer's escaped now, maybe on a go-kart.
Everyone has a secret. They have no passport stamp. They can't get verified, their sight grows dim. Who will be the champ?
So I called up the captain. Please, I wish that we flew. He said we haven't had any fuel here since we got back from Nauru.
And still those victims are calling from far away, waking you up when you're updating your regions, just to hear them say,
welcome to the Hotel NomadMania.
Open an account. What's your region count? Does this visit count?
Traveling around to the Hotel NomadMania.
Who's the one that kills all those imbeciles by the windowsills?
And there still be more victims. NomadManians will die. The detective is a novice, and all the suspects continuously lie.
up ahead in the distance, deleted regions galore.
They need a volume or some alcohol to try to reach Lahore.
Last thing I remember, I was counting the dead and a decapitation, a messy, bloody, rolling head.
Relax, said the killer. The master's rank's been redone. All the top travelers are dead right now. You can be number one.
Wow.
Did you enjoy that?
Wow. I sure did. I've always loved that song, and I don't think I'll ever hear its name ever again.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for being brave enough to try this out. A big thank you to all the people who sang in this, who are also fictionalized characters in the book.
Yes. Harry, it's so good to see you.
Nice to see you, Lucy.
Wow. I'm sure there's tons of questions about your book. So first off, Harry, I think people are going to conclude that it's like a murder mystery type of book, but is that what it is? Can you clarify what is the genre of your book?
Yes, I would say it's a whodunit. It is built as a kind of classic whodunit with, groups of people who are somewhere, then someone dies, and, sort of very Agatha Christie-esque. But what makes it relevant to our community is, first of all, the references to so many places. Every one of the UN countries is mentioned in the book somewhere in the narrative. So I think it perhaps maybe the very first book of fiction where every country's name is mentioned. And of course, what makes it special is all the people who are real people, but they're not. I mean, they're fictionalized versions of real people. And again, thanks to everyone who gave their permission for this undertaking. Thank you, Lucy, for being one of them.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, I'm so flattered that I am one of the people killed in your books. I know that sounds really
You give that away because the book starts, the very first chapter is called Lucy. So, it's no surprise that you die. That's in fact the first sentence of the book. So the very first sentence of the book is Lucy had 10 more minutes to live. So I think that's not a spoiler. We can give that away.
Yes, okay. So I think I'm going to start with, I'm sure a question people want to know. This title, it's fun, it's playful. Welcome to the Hotel NomadMania. How did we come up with this? How did you come up with this? I remember having a discussion with you about it.
Yeah, well, I do owe this a little bit to Ildiko Sabo, because the initial working title of the book and right until the end, it was just the NomadMania Murders. And then Ildiko was like, this is boring. This is just too obvious. Come up with something else. And I don't know where I came up with this welcome to the Hotel NomadMania. I knew NomadMania has to be in the title. I think it's probably because it's sarcastic for the book. All these people go to the hotel and, there's murders there. So, the word welcome, it's not really being welcome. But I think that also works as a joke for us travelers. Whenever we go to countries, there's always the sign welcome, but then, in some cases it's like welcome to Yemen, or I don't know, welcome to Libya. And these countries are so difficult to go to that you really don't feel that welcome in trying to prepare to go to. So, there is a bit of an irony there that may be special for travelers. Yeah.
Great. And I mean, it's obvious that your book is going to include a lot of descriptive detail about locations. And that's why I think a lot of travelers will enjoy it, because they're going to hear descriptions of places that they've been. But to what extent would you even consider this a travel novel?
Well, I mean, I am a traveler, and I would say that definitely the idea was to focus a lot, not only on the people, but on the place. And this is what we do on NomadMania as well. I think NomadMania is constructed to give a dual attention to the people who are part of it, the community, but also to all the places with the regional pages and whatever. So I wanted the book to have that dual focus as well. So on the one hand, you have these characters and they're all quite distinctive. And at least in terms of the leading characters, I've tried to really make them, each one of them, stand out. But then also the place itself is very important. And so there's 20 odd different places where the action happens. And maybe the description is not that deep, but for sure you get a bit of an impression about it. So I would say that the book certainly is a trip around the world in its way.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, I'm going to share. I'm happy and proud that I've been able to read your book twice now. And as I'm reading each chapter, I mean, I'm highly entertained by the murders. I hate to say that because most of these people are my friends.
Lucy, let's just make it clear to everyone that you're the only person who has read the book, because you were a kind of co-editor in a way. You helped by giving the book shape in a way and by encouraging me. So I guess this is a very good place to say thank you for that role, that this book would not have happened without your contribution. So
it's my pleasure and an honor that I have a small part in this book. And I think back to the inception of this book, and I feel, it's such a funny story. I think we should share it. I mean, you're in Yerevan right now, correct? So
yeah, I am joining this from Yerevan, and in that sense, the book has really come full circle.
Correct.
Yeah. So the story is this: last year, before the ETF, I led a tour in Armenia, and Lucy was on the tour. And one of our destinations was this monastery, which is called Matosavank, near Dilijan. And so the monastery is built in a way that on top of it, you have like an open circle. Many monasteries in Armenia are built like that. And so we all kind of headed there and wanted to take pictures within from that. But in order to not lose your balance, you need to kind of be held. And so I was the one who held your legs down so that you don't fall. Here we have the visual of that. Yes. You can kind of see my hands there on the so, and I think this is the moment when we came up with it. I was like, I can now throw you in, get rid of a high traveler. And we kind of joked about a murder mystery. And I don't know, you told me you really believed I would write it. But to be honest, when we were just saying it then, I didn't think I would actually go ahead and write.
I have to say I had a very strong hunch, because the moment I leaned over and you were so kind to say, let me hold your legs so you don't fall in, or I could just push you in. And I thought, wow, what a murder. And just like right before I finished my 193, and I still remember it was me and you, and it was Explorer Ed who took the photo. And from there, we had the conversation kind of just unfolded. We said, yeah, what if there are murders occurring in the travel community, and then I'm taken out, and then another extreme traveler is taken out, and we're killed like right before we finish our 193. Wouldn't that make for quite a whodunit? And then we kept talking about it. And then it just got funnier and sillier and more hilarious. And I'm like, I think there's a seed that we've planted. And knowing Harry, he's going to run with it. And I remember we left Armenia. It was an amazing tour. And then we followed up a little bit. And before I knew it, you said, Lucy, I wrote the first chapter. Don't you remember?
Yeah. And that was your chapter. That was really easy to write because we had the idea. So I knew that chapter would take place there, and that, you would be pushed in, and fall in that way. I had that in my head. So it was only a matter of describing that. And the first chapter was perhaps the easiest to write. But yeah, I guess it did materialize. And so now we're almost exactly a year since that tour, and the book is already out. So there you go. Yeah.
Now, but Harry, I was just so amazed by the speed with which you were producing chapters. And then I was so excited when you invited me to help read your chapters as they were coming out. And I was just wondering, how did you get the motivation to write so quickly? Because every few weeks you were sending me another chapter, another 2 chapters. And I was like, oh, I want to read more. And you were just really delivering very quickly. How did you get motivated so quickly?
Look, I think to be honest, this book was therapy more than anything else. Last year was a horrid year in almost every way. And, you know, I mean, the war in Ukraine and everything that went with it. And, you know, that was a really difficult year. And I think being able to tap into my inner ridiculousness and just totally go off, you know, on a tangent, that was really good for my psychology. So in many ways, transporting myself into this fantasy world and writing was what kept me, you know, happy and sane. And the more I did it, the happier I became, because this was so stupid and ridiculous, you know. And, you know, I hope no one takes this book seriously. You know, it's not meant to be. It's just meant to be pure entertainment. And yeah, I think, you know, when you write fiction, it's almost like I opened the laptop and then started writing, and it's like something came inside me, you know, and I would write without really even processing it, and then the chapter would be done somehow. So yeah, and I was really enjoying it. So I finished the writing within 5 months, like the first draft of it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you mentioned a little bit just right now about your book writing process, like it was kind of therapeutic and it was just coming out. And do you have anything else to share about your process of writing and how you came up with the ideas? I mean, you mentioned, you know, so many different locations and you included so many different characters. How did you come up with these ideas?
Look, well, firstly, the characters were, I think, the base of it all. And in that sense, the book was a bit easier than most because the characters really are real people. I mean, they are fictionalized, but I chose the people based on mainly how well I knew them. The only person who's a lead in the book whom I still haven't met is Alvaro. But we've been in touch with Alvaro for so many years that I kind of feel I know him. Everyone else I had met, so I already had a very good idea of how they are in real life. In some cases, people are not really fictionalized very much. Like your character, I mean, you're basically you. You get bumped off in the first chapter, so you don't have a role in the rest of the book that needs to, where I needed to make up things about you that were not true in order to fit with the plot. So it made it a bit easier to start with the characters, and then I just let my imagination go in terms of fictional relationships or antagonisms among characters. You know, those were totally fictional. In terms of the place, well, again, I mean, most of the places in the book, if not almost all, I have been to. So I have a visual of the place. In some cases, I looked up my old photographs from those places in order to get the description a bit more accurate. But that was the easy part. I think the hardest part was to make it work as a mystery, you know, and that is where I will know if this book works. You know, I think people in the community who know the characters are gonna like it. It's just so funny, you know. But I think the test will be if a total stranger takes this book and reads it without knowing the people. You know, will they like it? Will they like the relationships, the interplay, the mystery? Will it work with them? And that's when I'll know if it's a good book, basically.
Yes. I definitely know that the travel community will love it because they're going to read it and they're going to know, oh, I know this person. And then there's mostly fictional aspects of this character, but like there's some truth to some of the descriptions about the people and then the places many of us have been to. So that combination of the familiarity, when people read it, it's going to really draw the travel community. But you're right, like someone who doesn't travel or doesn't know these people, are they going to enjoy it? I personally think people will. You know, going back to, you know, the different people in the book. I mean, you portray some of us as being killed brutally, some people as being brutal murderers. And you decided to send chapters to different people, and people would read about the chapters with their killing and then make sure they're okay with it. And what was the general feedback that you got as people were reading chapters about themselves?
Okay. Well, let me say that the book is written in a way where every chapter has a different person. So the title of the chapter is the name of the person. And although it's written in the third person, it's kind of the point of view of that character. So like that, there's more than 30 chapters and there's more than 30 names and lead characters. So what I did is I sent that chapter of sort of that person to the people involved. Well, the feedback was extremely varied. I mean, some people were like, write whatever you want. And, you know, I think a couple of people didn't even bother to read it. They're like, I'm okay, whatever you write. Some people were very complimentary and said they really enjoyed it and can't wait to read the whole thing. What I found amusing is that I think some people really failed to see that this is meant to be fiction. So they would be coming back to me and saying, but this is not true. And I'd be like, well, no, it's not, because it's not meant to be true, you know. And I did get some comment, like someone didn't want to be a priest's son. They were like really against it and like, take that out, you know, I do not want to be the priest's son. Someone else didn't want to be like fat, you know, like, because they were like described as someone a little bit bigger, and they were like, no. And then I thought one of the ladies said, can you shave off a few years from my age? Which I found totally hilarious, given what that character goes through in the book, which like, you know, so like, I'm like, okay, that's the only thing that annoys you is your age, you know. So it was funny what people came up with. And yeah, I did try to always listen to what people were suggesting, and I really hope that no one is in any way offended by what I've written. You know, it is meant to be, you know, good humored and an entertaining read.
Yes, I mean, I think the bottom line is you were looking to have fun, and I think obviously this book is hilarious, and I also hope people won't be offended because it's fictional and it's fun. So clearly writing about people you know was part of the fun, but was there anything else that you considered the most fun part of this project?
Well, yeah, well, there was how should I put it? I wanted to have one big antagonism in the book where like one character really hates another character. I thought that is quite important, but precisely because I didn't want to offend anyone, I made the person hated be me, my character. And I think it was really funny to look up all these expletives and write them about me, you know. So like Harry the Snake, Harry, you know, and then everything that goes with it, and that person really loathes me.
Yes.
That was kind of entertaining because it's so contrary to what we usually do. You know, usually we try to protect ourselves from that, and so I totally flipped it around. Yeah.
I think that was one of the funniest parts for me because I know most of the characters, and sometimes you would write a chapter about this character, and I know this character to be something in real life, and you turn them to be completely opposite of what they really are. And I found that very hilarious.
I did that especially with Gustav, who was totally cool with having that done. So you're going to enjoy the Gustav chapter, whoever reads it. Yeah.
I would say the one that mentions Banked as well to be pretty hilarious.
Yeah, Banked has a very small but distinctive role. Yeah. But again, you know, I would like this book to be read even, you know, by people who don't know who these people are, and hopefully they will find it funny as well.
All right. So we've talked about what made this project fun, but you know, I'm sure there were parts that were not fun. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, look, rewriting is always dreary. So once you finished the last chapter, that is when you need to go back to the beginning and start again. And a lot of that process is tedious. You know, you need to look for the commas. The book is written in British English, and I needed to make sure that, you know, all the Zs become S's where it's appropriate and things like that. So that part was very laborious. I also, at the very end, decided to add minor details because I did go to a professional editor like I had done with my first book. And I got some feedback, which meant I had to rewrite quite a chunk of things to make it more dialogue, because the feedback I got was that it was too descriptive and that it would be more direct if the people were having dialogue. And some of that was not always entertaining. It was a bit more technical rather than creative. But, it's all part of the process of writing. So I think ultimately, when you're creating something, it's always worthwhile. So,
Yes.
in that sense, even that was kind of something I knew I'd have to do, and that was fine.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, revision is work that needs to be done, but it's not always fun.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question. I personally am curious. Well, and you mentioned your first book, which I read, about William Bakeland, and I really enjoyed it. What makes this book similar, or what makes this book a Harry Mitsidis book?
What a question. Well, I don't know. I guess only I could ever write a book like this. I think this book is, well, look, the William Bakeland book was fact, right? So even though it was quite subjective and obviously written from my understanding and perspective, it was very factual, and there was a very clear structure, and I tried to stick with it. So although the story is insane, I wouldn't call that book insane in terms of the book itself. I would say this time it is the book that's insane. It's like totally off. I think, by the middle of the book, people will be like, I don't really know this Harry Mitsidis. How can he come up with all this? It's just, it's very different maybe to the image people may have of me. I think people often just label me as a traveler, and a big traveler, and they just see that, but I think here it's very much part of me, because there's a lot of in-jokes about places. Some places that I'm a little bit more obsessed about, like Nauru, get a full chapter,
One of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, there you go, so that's why the community will like it, I think, because there's so many of the places that we and only we obsess about. Asmara has a chapter in it. Barle Hertog and Barle Nassau get a chapter, and I think just the choice of these places makes it, to a certain extent, a Harry Mitsidis book. And and ultimately also, I guess, the plot itself, it's totally madcap. There's a lot of attention. Well, there's a lot of in-jokes that only people who've been to a place will understand. Like, a lot of the action takes place in Layang in the Spratlys, and that is where we actually had the first NomadMania conference back in 2017. So I used that. And I just imagined how we would have been if someone had been murdered while we were there at the conference. There's a lot of dialogues which are about regions and adding regions or deleting regions, things that are just so NomadManian or, community-based, and no one else would ever think of. So, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that, writing this book was an outlet. It was therapeutic. It was fun. But would you elaborate more on what was your main aim of this book?
I think the main aim from the very beginning was to celebrate the travel community 2023. Time flies, and before we know it, everything changes. Before we know it, we won't be around. I kind of have this image that someone will unearth this book in 70 years and think, oh my, these people existed like in 2023. Look at them and what they did. I really wanted this to be a tribute, which is why I tried to put in all the relevant travel communities, with their real names. Why there's so many lead characters, because I tried to put as many people as I could. And there's also more than 150 cameos from the people who answered the EPS and the NomadMania posts, where I asked people to, if they wanted to be in the book. So they are with their names. first names only. So I think that is my kind of tribute to the community and everyone, or many of the people who make it what it is. And hopefully people will understand that.
I hope so, because when I look at this book, I feel like it's a gem. It's a gift to the community. I mean, no one ever, I think, would be able to produce something that includes, all of these characters within this tight-knit community, and it encapsulates places and, specific places that, people who haven't been there, they won't know what it's like. And so when you wrote a chapter on Palau or Nauru or in Socotra, someone who's been there, it's going to like really, trigger memories from these places. So all of those combination of elements makes it a real unique book, in my opinion.
Yeah, in that sense, I mean, this really is a unique book. I'm quite sure there's nothing quite like it out there. So yeah, I await to see what people will make of it.
Yes. Well, I know people are excited, and so I have to ask. I think I know the answer, but I have to ask anyway. Can you give us any hints to the plot?
No, I don't think I should.
No,
no hints at all. Well, yeah, you die in chapter 1. Thank you, Lucy. The first bit, and that's as much as we should divulge. I think what I can say is that there's more than 20 locations. There's a considerable amount of victims who are killed in different ways because we don't want to be boring and repetitive. Yeah, I think that's all that people should know at this point. From there on, let them just embark on the journey.
Yes, let's get people out there and reading this. So that leads me to a very important question. How are people going to get a copy of this book?
Well, this book is available on Amazon. It's been available since day before yesterday, I think. So if you just go to Amazon in the country you're in, if it's in the US, just go to amazon.com. If it's in the UK, it's amazon.co.uk, etc., etc. You've got 2 versions. You've got the paperback, which is available now, and you've got the Kindle edition, which will be available on October 10th. You can pre-order it, and it will arrive into your Kindle on October 10th, not before. The reason I did this is because I'm a bit old-fashioned, and I did want to give the print version a slight priority. And so I guess people who do order the print version now will get it before October 10th and be able to read it. Yeah, so it's available on Amazon, and you just click and go ahead. And let me say that all the proceeds here, the whole idea is not for me to become rich, obviously. This is not what's going to happen. All the proceeds are going to go straight to the NomadMania Scholarship Fund, and we are going to be rebooting that because we haven't given any scholarships for the last 2 years, but we are planning on starting this again. So we hope to give at least 2 scholarships very soon to people who've never been abroad from their country and give them this gift of travel. So anyone purchasing this is helping so that someone who's never really traveled gets out there. And maybe we'll give them a copy of the book for good measure. If that scares them, then maybe they'll never travel again.
Let's hope it doesn't scare them too much.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, and maybe people want to know also, now you've written 2 books. Is there going to be a third?
Oh, Lucy, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, as I said, writing this was really fun. And, if this book sells well, I may write a sequel. I mean, I've been doing a tour in Armenia now the last week. And within the group, we kept on thinking, is this a good idea for a murder? We went to a beekeeper, and he showed us how he makes honey, and all I could think about was how the bees are out and murdering someone. I think I'm definitely addicted now. I mean, I might be inclined to write a sequel just because of the therapeutic value of this. But if not, I assume that maybe, you know, once you start writing and you enjoy it, then I guess you keep on. And yeah, I mean, as long as someone is interested in these books, yeah, I might write something. And maybe it won't be a murder story. Maybe finally able to write a book about my travels, because that's something I still haven't done. So we'll see.
That makes sense. Okay, at least it's not a no. It's a let's see.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I think that pretty much wraps up the questions that I had for you. And I don't know if there's more that you wanted to share before we wrap up this wonderful webinar.
Okay, we have a question here.
Great.
Can we know how many travelers are featured or killed? Well, how many are featured? As I said, there are about 30 something travelers in a sort of leading role, in the sense that they have a chapter to themselves. There's probably around 10 or more who are sort of secondary roles. They are mentioned within the book repeatedly. And then there's all these cameos. I am not going to reveal how many end up dead, though. I think that's for you to read up and figure out.
It's a lot.
Lucy, don't give it up. Come on.
My lips are sealed.
But it's definitely more than one. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions from the crowd? Well, I guess not. So thanks for joining.
Yes.
Jack.
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, plural there. So more than one copy. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. How many pages? The final version has 367 pages, but that includes a couple of blank pages here and there. But it's a long book. It ended up much longer than I would have expected. The whole thing has more than 100,000 words. That includes forward and the acknowledgements and everything. So it's relatively long. But I think that is part of the fact of wanting to have so many characters and to develop them a little bit, you know. And once again, if you're not in the book, it might mean that I've never met you, in which case, you know, it would have been more difficult to develop a character. So, you know, don't take that personally. And then if I have met you and you're not in the book, maybe you can make it in the sequel if there's one.
Well, it sounds long, 300 pages, but I guarantee you it is a very quick read. I don't think I was able to stop reading. Yeah, you won't be able to put it down.
Yeah, and the chapters are short. I mean, because there's more than 30 chapters, the chapters are about 6 pages each. So they're kind of easy to go through, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wow, it's been a great morning for me here in California. Spoke to some wonderful panelists and watched the most hilarious video ever talking about your book, Harry. Thanks for having me host. I had so much fun this morning.
I'm really glad you did. And thank you for undertaking this. And once again, for being the moral support behind this book. So yeah, here's a copy. This is the only copy that exists probably so far. And as you can see, it has a ban not for resale. This is the proof copy. So I ordered it before the release to check the mistakes. But hopefully soon this will make it to your address and you can enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Harry. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope you got some practical tips. I hope you were entertained. And I hope that you look forward to our next webinar and maybe you're inspired to do some writing today. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.